Growing up, my family was anything but normal. My parents always favored my younger brother, treating him like he could do no wrong while I was left to fend for myself. I learned early on that no matter what I did, I'd always be in his shadow. Birthdays, achievements, even basic needs were secondary to making sure my brother was happy. They didn't abuse me in the obvious ways. It was more like I was just invisible. I thought maybe things would change as I got older, but instead, it got worse. After years of being ignored and belittled, I reached a breaking point. One night, my parents took things too far and I decided I couldn't stay there anymore. I packed my things and left, moving in with my grandparents. My mom's parents had always been supportive, even if they couldn't legally intervene when I was younger. They couldn't exactly rescue me, but now, as an adult, I could make the choice myself. They welcomed me into their home without hesitation. My other grandparents soon arrived to check on me, just to make sure I was okay. They'd always been disappointed in my parents' behavior, but didn't realize how bad it had gotten. After seeing me and understanding how neglected I'd been, both sets of grandparents banded together and reached out to my parents. They expressed their disappointment and, after a long conversation, decided that my parents no longer deserved to inherit anything from them. Instead, they would leave everything to me. That decision was a bombshell. The first call I got from my parents wasn't to apologize or make amends. It was to blame me for being a snitch. They called me selfish, saying I'd overreacted and ruined their relationship with the family over petty grievances. It was laughable, really, the way they tried to downplay years of neglect. Then they told me I needed to fix things with my grandparents and convince them to change their wills back. That's when I decided to stand my ground. I told them they had brought this on themselves and I wasn't going to fix anything for them. They called me every name in the book, accused me of being greedy, and demanded that I do the right thing. But I reminded them that they were the ones who'd ignored me my whole life, choosing my brother over me at every turn. I told them they'd better start saving for their own retirement, because they wouldn't have anything from me. After that conversation, I blocked them. I felt relieved but also conflicted. Some of my friends said I'd gone too far, that I should have just accepted the inheritance quietly and walked away. They thought I should have taken the high road instead of gloating. But I told them they didn't know what it was like to be ignored your whole life, to finally stand up for yourself and see the people who hurt you finally face the consequences. A few days later, my parents showed up at my grandparents' house, yelling and demanding to be let in. They hadn't learned a thing. Instead of apologizing, they were there to set things straight, and even tried to argue with my grandparents. They called me out from the front door, throwing insults and accusing me of tearing the family apart. My mom claimed I was too dumb to even get into a good school like Stanford, and that I'd only gotten my grandparents' sympathy by lying about how they'd treated me. I'd had enough. I walked to the door and told them that maybe if they hadn't been so insecure, I might have actually had the chance to go to a good school. But they'd made sure my dreams were smaller, so I wouldn't outshine my brother. My grandparents, finally seeing me agitated, stepped in. My grandpa turned on the sprinklers, soaking my parents until they left in a rage. Since then, my parents have tried to contact me a few more times. They even came back to my grandparents' house, but this time, my grandpa called the cops, and they were removed. My family, the people who should have been there for me from the beginning, was reduced to strangers yelling at my door. Now, it's been a few months, and I've cut ties with anyone who can't understand why I did what I did, including those friends who thought I should just let it go. I don't regret it. My grandparents support me, and I'm grateful to finally be surrounded by people who love me. I started college recently, and while it's not Stanford, it's a good school. I'm focusing on building a future for myself, one where I can pay my grandparents back for all the kindness they've shown me. Looking back, I realize I was never selfish or greedy for wanting respect and love. I spent too many years believing I didn't deserve more, and now I know better. Cutting out toxic people, even family, isn't easy, but it's necessary for growth. I have new friends now, and I'm making a life that I can be proud of. A life that, thankfully, my parents will never have a part in.